to catch us.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome. It's another Friday, which means it's another episode of the Business Unscripted podcast where Duarne and I are going to kind of give you the real behind the scenes kind of advice, things that we're struggling, that we're going over. And we're going to get into some good conversations today. I'm looking forward to it from Duarne in the pre-show. But with that in mind, grab your cup of Joe. Let's jump into the show. Duarne, thanks for joining me again, brother. It's another Friday, another beautiful sunny day. Well, I guess for some of us, your face says it all.
Yeah, it was a sunny day. It's Good Friday here, so we had a family outing down by the beach. So that was a nice little day out. Clearly, aloe vera is going to play a part in my next few days.
Hopefully it's in your Easter basket.
Yeah, maybe. Well, I chew on some chocolate.
I choke on my coffee.
My dad would say, "Is there bones in that?"
Wow, that hit hard. I wish, but no. Great start to the show. So Duarne, give a little introduce yourself, right? Duarne is my co-host. Duarne's one of my business partners. So for those that maybe this is their first episode, kind of stopping by, give a little behind the scenes of who you are.
For me, I'm that guy that you just bring in to talk occasionally, right?
No,
because
talk, so it's all right.
Talking, no, definitely. Communication is not one of my strengths. For anyone who knows me knows I do like to talk. We're just joking at this point. So yeah, look, for me, I've been leaning into a lot of my AI related skill sets and tech related skill sets and my marketing skill sets and joining them all together over the last couple of years and really enjoying it and being able to give a lot of advice and a lot of assistance to people in that area. But at the same time, I run a web design business. So we do a lot of web design, web development, as well as SEO and digital marketing for clients from Australia, Philippines, and also in the US.
Right.
So that my background is pretty much around websites. That's an interesting visitor on your screen there. I'm used to seeing the dog, cat.
Yeah, it's my cat.
I didn't even know you had a cat.
One of them. I got two.
Oh, you're a cat man. Okay.
I love dogs too.
Nice. Animals are awesome. So yeah, that's pretty much me. Dave and I met.
And I think that's one of the things for like you and I, right? I love the idea that like you have one piece of the pie, right? You have a lot of website side understanding there in terms of like how to develop it, how to, you and your team are great at the automation, the back end, the development of the websites, the SEO side, things that I don't necessarily have. I know of them, what's that phrase? I know enough to be dangerous, in terms of like helping people out, but it's dangerous one of two ways. One, in a helpful way, but also like if you want me to do it, it's probably going to be dangerous in the other way where it's not going to work. But so that's why I love, having you as a part of the team and having these conversations. And I think you kind of point some things in the right direction for me a lot of times. And I think as a business owner, being able to understand where your limitations are, right? What are your weaknesses, and your strengths, and find people that you can surround yourself with that not supplement your strengths, but that supplement your weaknesses.
Yeah, that's a good call. Because if we surround ourselves with like-minded people, then that's great. But if they all have the same skill set as well, we're kind of just a bunch of friends catching up then, aren't we? There's no real growth between any of us. So I've seen it so many times where It's like one of the things we talk about where we go fishing for leads. If you're going to go and join a LinkedIn marketing group and you're a marketer, that's fantastic. If you just want to get ideas from other people or give back or share, but you're not going to find customers there because customers are not going to be other marketers. They're going to be people who are not interested in that group because they have nothing to contribute. They're going to be in their own little groups. So, yeah, I think that really
people. I think one of the things for me, and even I think I have room in my life for even more of this, right? Where it's looking for people that are going to push you forward and require more out of you than you feel like you can give right now, because ultimately we will surprise ourselves. Even I've surprised myself getting to this point. You know what I mean? In terms of some aspects of my life and what I'm able to do. I'm sure, Duarne, you can think of 3 or 4 times in your life where it's like, I don't think I could do that, and then you accepted it, and then you became great at it, right?
absolutely. I mean, and when you look back, I mean, you're going to see a lot of those moments. You're going to see moments where you're like shaking your head, going, "I didn't think that was going to be possible," and then you're going to find yourself just sitting there going, reminiscing about the fact that you did put in the time, you did put in the effort, and the payoff's been great.
Yep. And so it takes a little bit to understand like who the people are that you want to have around you. I think it is, for myself, is because you have to be open and you have to be self-aware. I think a lot of people want to over exaggerate their strengths and undersell their weaknesses, when in reality it should be reverse. Undersell your strengths but oversell your weaknesses, because you're able to find. Think about the most common example. How many times, Duarne, for yourself, right? You said you're in website SEO, all that kind of stuff, right? How many times has you been brought a website that somebody thought they did wonderfully themselves, but they're like a bookkeeper, and they're like, "Oh, I created my website," like, and they thought that it should be perfect, and it's perfect, and then you've looked at it, you're like, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I've actually been caught out a few times on this one. So one of the first questions I ask when I'm actually doing a website audit or review is I ask the question of, so who built your website for you? So I know how soft
and then you're like, me.
So great. You must be a fantastic accountant, because I'm telling you right now, this website, probably not the right site for you.
Yeah.
But no, I attack it very tactfully when I do it. But you're right. People get very passionate about some things, like, doing their own website or the designs, their logos. And what they don't tend to realize is it's not showcasing them in the best light.
Right.
How many times have you gone and taken a look at a website from a bookkeeper, for example, and going, their website looks like shit. There's no way I could trust this person to make sure my books are right. Yet you talk to their customers, and their customers tell you they are amazing. They're really, really good at what they do. But they just decided to try and do something they weren't good at. And that just happens to be a Facebook, a website or a Facebook page or whatever those things might be that they've done. And they've done it very, very poorly.
And when you think about it too, it's like, it's your image, and it's your time. Like, that's the other thing. It's your time. So we're all limited. Like, no matter what, like, every human is the same, and they get the same 24 hours in a day. Like, no human on earth gets 36 while other people feel like they get 12. Like, it's just not a thing. Like, we all get 24. So you really truly have to understand, like, where are you going to be spending your time? Are you going to be spending it doing client work? Are you going to be spending it, cleaning up your own books? Are you going to be spending it, making marketing? Like, what is it that is important to you in order to get your business to that next level? And if it's not doing all that back end, that stuff that it's your weakness, then stop trying to do it. Stop trying to get good at your weaknesses or great at your weaknesses, which is probably going to be very difficult to happen, and it takes a lot of time investment, and really focus on being exceptional with your strengths. And I think that's where a lot of people, not only in business owners, but just I think in life, like, people spend too much time trying to improve their weaknesses instead of just offshooting and outsourcing their weaknesses to other things and to other people, and then maximizing the strengths in their life.
Well, yeah, let's think of a football team for a minute here, right? So you've got a football team.
We're talking soccer or American football?
We're talking about, American football here
Okay,
for a
okay,
minute.
okay.
Yeah, I'm Australian. We have real football in Australia where we don't use
Yeah.
padding and stuff, but we'll talk about NFL for a minute.
All right, all right.
All right, but the same principle goes with all football, basically. Soccer, not so much. So you look at positions on the field; they are very, very niche skill sets in each position. Like most of the time, you're not going to find a quarterback going to be able to go and play another position as well as someone else in another position trying to play in another position on the field. It's just
Right.
not going to work because everybody is trained and they set themselves up and their body up in that instance to be perfect for the job that they're trying to get. And I think this is the key for us when we start looking into this and we start looking at business. Most people tend to try and do it all. And doing it all is great if you think you can do it. But that's pretty much what you do when you get started on a small startup. And at some point, you have to realize that you have to allocate things elsewhere. Because if you're going to take 3 weeks to build a website that's going to look like crap still, or it's going to look as good as what somebody else could have done in a week for you,
Right.
was it worth the time that you invested? Well, if you've got no money and you've got no staff, maybe that's your only option at that time. But at some point, you need
Yep.
to
But
revisit
you
that.
get it improved, you get it upgraded, because also if you do a basic website, there's a lot of things that are possibly missing from there. It's not probably not generating leads for you. It's probably not doing, like document, portals and different things that you could possibly do with a website that makes your life easier as you grow. Um, and we're not saying if you are bootstrapping that you have to try and find money to outsource things. No, that's not what we're saying. But what we're saying is don't overestimate your time. Like don't over delegate your time to your weaknesses. Like
Yeah.
do the minimal for your weaknesses, but really focus on your strengths. So if your strengths are having conversations with people, right? Don't try to put social media content out too much. Like actually go and focus on your strengths. And be, for a lot of people, social media is hard, right? Social media is an unknown, and it's not a strength for a lot of people. But people feel like they have to do it and spend a lot of time doing it because that's what they hear people say, right? They hear people say, "Be out there," and that's great, but it doesn't take a lot of effort to do it minimally. Just keep you in the algorithm until you're able to outsource that part of your business.
Well, and that's interesting you should say that too. I mean, because look, you might get more customers if you just pick up a phone and start dialing numbers.
Right.
You might get more customers by writing that email and sending it to somebody and asking for the business.
Right.
There's other ways to get business, not just by just social media. Social media has always been, in my opinion, about awareness. It's about building up that awareness and helping getting that trust factor out there initially. But the actual getting in touch and closing, you can't rely solely on social media for it.
Right.
I've got clients over the years that would come to me and run Facebook ads or they run Google ads, and they'd be like, "I'm not getting any leads." It's like, well, what else are you doing? I'm just running these ads. All right, well, what do you expect? I mean, you can't just do one thing and expect it to work for you.
Right.
Sometimes you need to be able to do a little bit more as well. So make sure that you're doing things to your strengths initially, because maybe getting on the phone and calling 5 people a day is in your area asking for some business or offering to do something for them or evaluate or audit or something might be a better solution than trying to drop all that time learning how to use Canva,
Right.
posting those contents up. And yeah, it could be a combination of the two. It really just comes down to what you feel is a better suit of your suitable use of your time. But how do you know what's the right use of your time when you're getting started? You just see this huge list in front of you, and you're like, I've got to get all these things done because this is how you set up a business, this is how you run it, like you were saying before. Everyone's got these bloody roadmaps they want you to follow.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no one true way that works for everybody. And
well, you asked a good question, right? You asked an important question. I think a lot of people probably have, and it's what do you do if you don't have the clients or you don't have the revenue, right? And you're just getting started. And my number one answer to that is going to be, you need to be spending at least 50% of your time doing conversations with your target clients and outreach to them. So what is your strength? Is your strength in-person networking? Is your strength calling and having a conversation? Is your strength talking to your warm network of people, or your past? Really focus on that. So 50%, so 4 hours a day, and actually it would probably be more like 5 to 6 hours a day, because as a business owner, your minimum day should be 10 to 12 hours to generate the awareness and everything. Like, you literally don't work a 9 to 5 anymore if you're a business owner. At least 5 to 6 hours a day, if you're not where you're at, should be contacting your ideal client profile, right? So whether it's on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Alignable, right? Or, picking up the phone book and just searching your area, and if you're, I don't know, whatever, I don't know, give me something random and I'll give you an idea of like what they should be doing right now. Just give me a business.
All right. Let's say you are a plumber and you've just gone out, you're running your own, you're working for somebody else, and you've just decided to get out on your own.
Yep.
Tell me what to do.
Here's what you should be doing. You should be going to your local network, whether it's on Alignable or Facebook. Facebook probably use your business owners. And if you're comfortable having conversations with people and growing your network that way, search all the people in your area in a certain town that are friends of your friends. And then find John, who's friend with your best friend, Jim, and go, hey, Jim, can you make an introduction to John for me? I noticed he was in the area and I'm opening my plumbing business. 1. 2, you could go door to door. If you're comfortable having face-to-face conversations with people, go door to door in your local neighborhood and have this amazing sort of plumbing maintenance plan that you have available for people, where it's like a minimum monthly, investment, and pre-sell them before you even get started. Another one would be go to homeowners associations and offer a special homeowner, association special for that that neighborhood. There's a lot of things that you could potentially do here. Another one, landscapers. Let's say you're a landscaper, you want to just get started, but you don't have the lawn equipment, right? You need to get a loan for lawn equipment. You need to get a loan for, a truck, a trailer, all that kind of stuff, right? Go and pre-sell lawn maintenance pack. It's springtime. Now is the time to walk around the neighborhood and pre-sell, 15, 20 lawn maintenance packages, contracts for the year. Take those signed contracts to your bank and say, here is my revenue. I have these signed contracts. I want to put this revenue as collateral for this new loan that I need. Boom. Right. A lot of people don't think that. That's locked in revenue. Like you're not starting from scratch anymore. You have 20 signed contracts. Let's say it's $200 a month, for 6 months. So it's $1,200 each. So you're at $25,000, $26,000 starting before you even opened a door and got equipment.
That's an interesting point.
The $5,000-$6,000 you need to get your new lawnmower and get your weed whacker and get started. Like, you can do it. You just have to get out there and think of ways to do it and play to your strength.
And look, if you're talking about like those sort of businesses too, I mean, traditional marketing works really well for that. And when I say traditional marketing, just a little flyer that you can walk around, drop in the mailbox. You can walk up, put on someone's door, knock on their door, hand them the flyer, have a chat to them, introduce yourself, tell them what you're all about. Even that's a great example of, something where a Facebook ad works well. You just need a simple Facebook page for something like that, not necessarily a website, just a simple Facebook page and run an ad.
And the other thing too is, let's say you're not comfortable with sales, so you're not comfortable with the conversation. There are plenty of people out there that will work on commission, that are great at sales. You just have to be willing to work with them on a proper commission structure. And you just make sure it works for yourself. But let them do all the door-to-door stuff for you. Now you're outsourcing that, and it's not costing you anything until they make a sale. And you could hire 3 or 4 guys that are walking around local neighborhoods that work commission only, that get maybe 25% of every sale. And they get it for the first year their contract that they're signing. If you're a landscaper, right? Obviously, you have to play with whatever your service is and, have that conversation. If you have conversations or thoughts, share us a question. We'll kind of help you kind of develop that. But there are ways for you to bring on a sales team that you don't have to pay for right away, that work on a commission only kind of structure. And, people are used to that, but they'll do it as long as the commissions are worth it. And that's the thing. They have to know that it's worth it. If you're going to say, oh, I'll give you 5% of every sale, like that's not going to be worth it to people.
But let's take that one step further too, Dave. I mean, you can partner up with, if you're a landscaper, go and partner up with a plumber, with a roofer, with a couple of other tradespeople in your area. Then collectively, you guys can go out and find yourself one of these people who can go out and do commission sales, and they've got a much better chance. If there's 5 of you in your group offering services, and they could go out and try and sell 1 in 5, they're going to be much happier about that, because every house has a chance, that just 5 times the chance of getting something.
Take that even one step further. Now partner with all these, plumber, electrician, all this stuff, and create a monthly home maintenance plan where like you guys sell this maintenance plan to people, and if anything's needed, it's included. Guys, come up with things that add value to people's life. That's all that matters. If you're adding value significantly higher than, or peace of mind that's higher than the investment that you guys would need monthly, it's a benefit to everybody. It's going to work.
Absolutely. And just remember that the more complex or more difficult that problem you're solving is, the more you get paid for it. Yep. The more value that has. Because there might only be a handful of people who can solve that problem. So if you've got a solution to that problem that they've got, then that's huge. That's really, really good. And that problem could just be as simple as having somebody to turn up when something goes wrong in a timely manner. Because how many times have you called a tradesperson and then sat there and waited, and waited, and then they didn't turn up? I mean, that's just reality.
And at any time, if you're watching this and you have questions, like put them down in the comments. We can see the comments. We'll answer them live. If it's something that you want us to walk through or talk through, like this is an open conversation with those of you that are watching. If you're watching the replay, hey, we're happy you're here. Drop them down in the comments below. We'll either, answer them right in the comments, or we will answer them on a future show. So just wanted to bring that, attention. But, Duarne, right. we talked earlier, about communication as well. And I think you briefly mentioned it earlier in the show. And me being a leader in my past as well, I feel a communication skills is one. But you had an interesting experience right before the show, right? You were at the beach all day, and then you get back to the office for our podcast. And why don't you kind of jump into?
I see an email from a client, and I've taken a look at it, and they're like, "Did you see this?" And they hit me on a message saying, "Hey, did you see this?" And I've taken a look, and it was one of the staff virtual assistants allocated to my client, and it made a comment about one of my websites not working. Now, this particular website is a little bit, I won't get into the details, but basically the message was a little bit cryptic in the way it was put together by my staff member, the VA, but it was also sent to the client, which didn't make much sense because it was actually an issue with an internal website. So just the way it was all put together, it created a lot of questions, a little concern, a little stress, and it delayed getting a response in the correct manner and getting the right people looking at the problem. And it really just highlighted, where does a problem like that start? Is it a communication problem? Is it a process problem? Is this a issue where, there hasn't been enough, training offered to the staff member to know that, if there's an issue like this and we should do this? So it's now got me questioning a couple of things, which obviously it'll be Monday before I actually implement or get to talk to anyone about this, because we're on break here for Easter at the moment. But
I think what this highlights for you, and what I was listening to the story, not pre-show and now, is what it highlights is that a error or a lapse in your openness and directiveness with your communication has caused like 3 different people in this conversation, because there was you, there was your VA manager, there was even the VA's client that truly didn't even understand what the full issue is.
Exactly.
Is that and it's a simple email to yourself. It's like, hey, your website is hacked, right?
That's it. That's all that needed to happen, right? And we were
They
going,
tried
okay,
to
cool.
overthink the communication, which then confused a lot of people on what they were actually trying to say. So a lot of times being simple and explanatory is the best. Like, your website is hacked. Boom, done. Like, you didn't have to, well, I went to this website and it looks like it appears to give this message site to this site when it should be going to this site. No. Like, that's like the wrong message to
Well,
send.
the key of this is it's also in a notes and takeaways section on an end of day report, which goes to the client, not me. So I'm kind of like sitting there, and it was only the it was only the client actually forwarded me the email and raised the concern. And honestly, when I got it, I wasn't sure if it was the client was asking if their website was the one that was hacked or if it was mine. Because the first thing I thought is this is a client email. Maybe it's the client's website. I better quickly check it.
Right.
And then find out it was actually ours. And I was like, oh, man. Okay, that's a whole nother problem I have to deal with right now. And that's fine. These websites get hacked. We can deal with this. But when you just find that the communication goes around in circles, and it's just a fluke that I actually found out when I did. So that's my concern. And this is where, like you said, I looped in my manager who handles the VAs, and he's like, oh, I did see that message. It was alerted to me. I didn't realize that it was actually our website. I thought it was the client's site. So I suggested that they use the support from, that platform. And I'm like, okay. So again, just mixed information. It wasn't clear enough on the original message as to what the actual issue was.
Now,
So totally,
as a business owner, do you also feel like maybe there was some training or some communication on your side to say, like, hey, like, this is our site. If something happens with our systems, like, it comes directly to me or even higher up.
Yeah,
Like,
I'll wear that. I kind of also feel like I've already said that, but maybe it got lost in with all the other information coming in at the same time of that. So look, I feel like, if it needs to be a simple, clear instruction. If this, do this. If this, do this. If this, do this. It's kind of like if fire, pull this alarm.
Pull lever 1, step 2, run,
Exactly, right? I mean, and it's just like, okay, you kind of have to give people the most simple, in the event of an earthquake, do not use elevator. Things like this, right? Or a lift. It's one of those things where I think, it's made me realize, what, keep it simple. Sometimes I've just got to make it even simpler. And I think you're right. I think for me, I'm looking at it as a process change. I need to adjust the process now in order to make sure that this doesn't, occur again. But hey, you know what? Communication is super important in a business. And I think we can all think of times when communication failures have caused delays in getting results, delays in getting problem solved quickly, or just in general, just people not finding out about the right things in the right times.
So for yourself and me, one of the big things, communication, I feel is one of those always looking to improve type things in life. You're never going to be perfect at it. You're never going to be an expert. I'm sure there's some people, but I feel for myself, it's always one thing that I always wanted to continue to improve. I know it's one of my lacking, and for my team, when I led a team, especially in my head, the way my head works, things go by so quickly for me, and I see things so much quicker than my mouth works sometimes, that I feel like I'm saying the right things, but people who work for me or with me, and Duarne, I'm sure you've probably felt this way with myself as well. You may not have a full understanding of it. So I always have, from being in a leadership role, I've always told my teams, look, if you are unsure of what we're talking about, so if we're talking through a project and we're talking through like an expectation or a report out or something that we have to accomplish, and you are not sure what the outcome is that you're trying to head towards, ask the question.
Absolutely.
And because for me, as a leader or as a business owner, if I were to get off a meeting or I were to walk out of a meeting and the question wasn't asked, and I feel like I'm telling you, hey, this is what I'm looking for, A, B, and C, here's what we're going to do, X, Y, and Z. And then you bring me the finished product without asking me a question, at the end of the week or the end of the day, whatever it may be, and it's not what we talked about, then I'm going to be more upset, right?
It's going to be
But
a
if you
what the it just happened there moment. And look, I
exactly,
get it all the time, Dave. I totally like throw into that mix that I've got over 20 staff here in the Philippines that I work with on a daily basis where English is not their first language. So when you get a language barrier, and I know there's a lot of listeners probably going to watch us at some point in the future who realize that, they may be working with Spanish speaking people, or they may be working with people who, have immigrated to the country to work there in the US, and they may not have, English as a first language. So there could be communication related issues that you don't even realize.
right.
But even with native English speaking people, just change, like just Australian versus British versus American English and accents. We all have a slightly different take on things. So we'll have you'll say something and you'll just think it makes sense. And then people go, well, I have no idea what he was talking about, but I was too polite to ask.
Right.
And I think that's what you need to break out of that culture in business. And we need to basically say to people, it's okay to ask questions. It's okay if you don't understand. It's okay to, ask questions to verify that you do understand and that you comprehend what's going on, because we would rather not have to come to the point of a turnover of a result of the task or whatever's been asked, and then find that there was a mistake. But like you said, it frustrates people. Not to mention,
But
can you
here's what
imagine?
it comes down to is as the business owner or leader when it comes to that, right? You only get, I would say, maybe 2 or 3 opportunities that if one of your staff or one of your employees comes to you with questions, and if you cut them off, if you tell them you don't have time, if you don't answer their questions and give them answers, you have about 2 or 3 opportunities where they'll stop asking. Because after that point, if they're not getting, and you don't have an open door and you're not coming back to them with answers, or you're not giving them the time and the openness to ask questions, they're going to stop and you're going to lose them. And at that point, it's really hard to get it back because they're going to feel like that you're not open, right? So
Well,
you
that's life
have
in
to,
general.
yeah,
That's life in general. You do that in a relationship with your partner, it's going to be the same thing. At some point, they're just going to stop asking you those questions. They're going to stop trying to communicate with you about that, because you are cutting them off. You are telling them that they're not important enough at that time. And look, it could be that instead of, if you don't have time, simply say, hey, jump on my calendar, find a time, and let's go through that.
exactly. And obviously, you're not going to do that
Find a
with your
way.
spouse, right? But it's
Oh,
one of
no,
those
no,
things
no,
too. Like,
definitely do that with your wife as well if you're
hey,
no,
how
I'm
about my
kidding.
calendar? I got conversation time with the wife scheduled for Friday at 8 a.m. No, I think ultimately you're right. You may be busy, and it's okay. Like, it's not saying like you have to like drop everything when your staff comes to you or your spouse comes to you or whatever. And also, if you're not in the right mindset, like recognize that and just say like, hey, like I just got out of a tough meeting, like or just got into an argument or a disagreement. Can one of two things, like either give me an hour or two, I'll come to you, and when things have reset, or how about drop me your questions in an email.
Yeah.
And I'll either draft a response or I'll come to you with the answers and we can talk about it. But now is not a good time. That's just as fine, but as answering their questions right then and there. But saying like, I don't have time for your questions, like figure it out, like go figure it out. That's different, and that's where people are going to be, standoffish, and you're only going to get maybe 2 or 3 opportunities for them to ask you questions. So,
But you can empower people in those situations too, where instead of telling them, figure it out yourself, you can simply say, give them a hint, give them a suggestion. So with that situation you've got there, if someone's come to you and they've said, hey, look, I can't figure this out, I've got some questions.
right.
No worries. Have you tried Googling it? Have you tried asking ChatGPT? Have you tried checking the company handbook? Have you tried looking at this case? where we've dealt with something similar in the past. Give them some suggestions, tips, or tricks to let them go away. And that's just as good as giving them a little bit of a tip or a hint to help them find that answer themselves. So it's not about saying you're going to spoon feed people either. It's just about saying, just find ways to communicate better. And I guess most people, when you're communicating with your children, you tend to have a lot more patience, especially when they're younger. Maybe not so much when they're teenagers, but typically when they're younger, they're going to ask you a question. And you feel yourself going, "Ooh, what does that mean? Yeah, let me sit back and think about that and explain that to you thoroughly and clearly."
Right.
We tend to lose that. We just assume that everybody's got the same experience as us. And when we get to an adult working stage, people come to us and they might have a similar job to us, but they may not have the same experience that you do to have gotten the job. They may have different experiences that got them the job. So when they ask you a question and say, "Hey, look, let's say, I don't know, a tax question, something you're familiar with, Dave," and you may know, and you go, "Well, you've studied, you got the same study I did, you got the same degree I do," but they may not come to the same conclusion. So give them a suggestion and go, "Look, go and have a look at this type of situation. You can look on this site and find that information. Let me know if you've got any questions from there."
Well, and the other thing as a leader, and we've talked about it in the past, me and you as well, is kind of what I like to call like the 1-3-1, right? And I've learned, and I don't remember who I heard it from, but I like the idea of it. And so it's one problem, like one question, and you ask your staff or your team to bring you 3 possible solutions to that one question, and then the one would be what they feel is the best option. And the idea there is it's to, one, give them the power to search and research and think outside the box themselves, but then 2, you guys can have a conversation about the outcome. And the more and more their one at the end becomes like the answer you're going with, the more and more they're going to feel empowered. And it's not you telling them, right? The whole adage, right? Teach somebody to fish, you feed them for life. Give somebody a fish, you feed them once.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's kind of what this style is, and that's what you're as a leader, as a business owner. That's your goal, right? And also, you're teaching them that you're paying them for a job, right? And to do a job description. It's far too often what'll happen is somebody will come into a business, and I had this happen to me for a job description, and we hire them to do a job, but then they come and say, "Well, how do you want me to do it?" No. I'm paying you to handle that part of my business. Like, go do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you have a question on like how we do a specific process, great. But for example, accounting, like I should expect you to understand how to reconcile a bank statement. Don't come to me and say, how do you reconcile this bank statement? Like, that's what I'm paying you for. You know what I mean?
You're hiring a skill set.
Exactly. Just like if you're a business owner and you hire somebody to do your social media, they shouldn't be coming to you and saying, "Okay, well, when do you want me to post how to do this?" Like, that's their job.
Instead, they should be turning up and saying, "Hey, here's the solutions that I think, here's some options on what we can do. Which do you prefer?"
Right. Like, let's have a conversation about it. And
yeah. And look, one thing I've always found with my team is I'll say to them, "Don't bring me problems. Try and bring me a solution." Now, if you can, and that, and that sounds a little corny, I guess, but reality is I get so frustrated when people just bring me a problem and expect me to solve it all the time. And it's like, well, no, we're all capable of solving these problems, and your input is just as important. And what I found is 90% of the time when I empower people to come up with their own solution on a problem, they already fixed most of it, or they'll come up with something which I hadn't considered. And look, we may still do what I tell them that is a better solution for this problem we got, because I know parameters they don't know. But it's good for them to have thought out what the solution could be before they came to me.
Right.
Otherwise, you're constantly putting out fires and dealing with people who won't think for themselves. And that's not any way to run a business or scale. If that's what you want, then you're probably not going to scale. You're probably not going to grow. And you're probably not going to promote those people into management style roles in the future, whether it's middle management or senior management, just because they're not the right fit. So instead, invest in your people, invest in communication, invest in making sure that they're empowered to feel like they can communicate with you and your team to be able to come up with solutions, ideas, question what you're actually doing, maybe put forward a suggestion that's better than what you're actually, originally planning, and make a conversation out of it at least. We just did this with project management systems in-house, where we empowered one of our team to go out and do the research on 5 different project management systems and then come back and report to a group of us advising what they felt was the best solution. We then raised a series of questions, sent them back out to get the answers, and then they've come back and presented again. And, through that, we've eliminated 3 of the 5 options. But it's that individual is now feeling really, really empowered. And the rest of the team are like, happy to take on other projects now too. So we've started giving other projects to other team members with similar situations. And now they're trying their hand at it as well and enjoying it. So I think you got to find what works for your business, but there's always little things you can do like this within your business that you might think is something you have to hold on and do yourself, but you probably don't really have to. You can let it go. You can delegate that. And it really comes down to just having better conversations with your team. Everybody talks about having great conversations with your customers and your team having great conversation with your customers. But I think, good communication starts within your own organization. Because if you got good, communication in your own organization, it makes it very natural to have good communication with your customers as well.
Yeah, and I think it does come top down. Like communication style, communication culture, that's going to start from the top, which is us as the business owner down to the rest of our team. And I know I got room to improve. I always have. Everybody has room to improve. So it's one of those things that I'm always trying to be mindful of. And, I'm not perfect. I don't claim to be perfect. Definitely have some opportunities there. So
we're all human, Dave.
Yeah, we are, for sure. Absolutely. And for anybody that says that they're not, or that they are perfect and that they have the best communication skills, they're probably lying. But I appreciate, you kind of sharing that backstory in terms of the hacking. Hopefully you get it fixed very quickly.
Yeah.
And it's not going to some Chinese website anymore, but
yeah, I'm sure we'll get on top of it.
Of course they do it right around Easter too, where, everybody's going to be off. But
well, that's it. That's the tough part, but that's okay. We've got an on-call team for these sort of situations. But at least we know about it. It would have been a lot worse if we didn't know about it. Even though we went around a long way around, we managed to find out what it was that this was the issue and that was the problem.
Right. And simple is sometimes the best. Like, you don't have to overcomplicate. Hey, your website is hacked. Don't overcomplicate it, and people understand it a lot easier.
That's it. And send it to the right people that need to know about it.
That also helps too. Is also important. Anything else happen exciting or interesting for you this week in terms of business operations? I know you guys are short week and everything with Easter, but
yeah, short week here, so probably not the most exciting of weeks, but still a good week for us.
But actually, that right there speaks to, you're here as the owner. You're here doing things even though people are off. And I think that's the biggest difference is if you had a job, you'd be off, right? You wouldn't be working. But as a business owner, you're on. Like even Easter, like if an email comes through from a client, like you're on, like you have to be. And it just proves to the point that you basically work 24/7 as a business owner until you got a big enough organization that things could be managed and you've offshored some of that. But right now, like you still have that firefighter hat that you got to wear when things come through and figure it out. And I think that's
the truth.
Yep.
And the smaller your team, the more relevant this is.
Right.
And, it's all, and, it really comes down to, we mentioned a few times now in the last few episodes, processes and systems. The better your processes and systems, my processes and systems are definitely not perfect and we're improving them, but I was able to go to the beach today and have a nice day with the family at the beach, and my business didn't burn to the ground.
Right.
There was nobody with their finger on the pulse working today because we all, are enjoying the day with our families as well, and everything kept happening. So yes, there was a problem or two that occurred as we found out, but that's fine. I mean, it's not critical. You know, it'd be a different story if I had a website that was consistently taking hundreds of orders every day. Then that would be a huge problem, and I would have made a better solution to make sure that that was monitored and taken care of, so that we couldn't, you know, make sure that that didn't happen in that scenario. But because of this type of website that's been affected, it's not the end of the world.
It's an informational website almost. You know what I mean? It's
Pretty
not like
much.
it's
I
like
mean,
your
and this is
whole.
it. Like, but if you're, and this is it, if your business was completely reliant on e-commerce, then obviously you'd have a solution in place that if you got hacked, that would be, you know, world-ending, sort of painful, especially on a holiday break where people are going to be using your website, etc.
Right.
But one would think you'd have a process in place to help you with that sort of scenario, and not have an issue where you're going to be offline for 4 days.
Yep. 100%.
So,
And so that's where it comes down to, like, a lot of times it does come down to like insurance. It's an insurance policy for yourself, right? Some of these services, backups are insurance. You hope you never have to use them, but when you do, you're happy that they're in place.
absolutely. There's a fee for having that insurance,
Right.
but when you don't have it, there's a fee for that as well. So it only takes one event to cause a lot of turmoil.
Yep.
So I think you just got to weigh that sort of thing up. But there was something else, Dave, that I was watching a video and I shared with you during the week, which was it was quite interesting. And look, there's one segment I think we wanted to try and play today, just to basically encourage everybody out there to watch it, because there's some pretty hard truths in this video that I found. And I think you haven't watched the video yet.
I have not watched the video yet. No.
You've been busy.
Yeah.
It's been tax season, I understand. So, you know, your attention has been.
Let's bring it up, and why don't you give us a little background on it, and then we'll kind of play it from the beginning. Because your idea, obviously, we're not going to get to the whole video now. I think we have like, you know, maybe
no, and I think let's just watch the first segment of it and then have a conversation about that.
Okay.
There's basically, everybody watch is going to get the idea of it, and it's Principles for Making Money by Layla Hamosi. Now, we all hear about Alex all the time, and honestly, I haven't heard much from Layla. So when I stumbled across this in my YouTube suggestions, I was like, yeah, let's check it out. Cool. I didn't realize it was Layla Hamosi at the time. I just, you know, thought, okay, let's see what this information. 30 seconds in, I was like, I'm going to keep watching it. And I watched the whole 39 minutes, and I walked away feeling a little enlightened, shared it to a few friends and said, hey, check this out. This is pretty cool. So let's just start with the first part of the video.
Let me know if you can hear it. Let me just play it real quick. Can you hear it?
10 rules of money that have made me a shitload of money, and hopefully will make you a shitload of money too. Starting with number 1, you don't have to be smart to get rich. I used to believe that you had to be smart and you had to be like from an Ivy League school or of some like crazy background in order to get rich. And that's kind of how I viewed it for a long time, until I had a really interesting experience. It was back in 2016, and I was trying to make money with my first business. And I went to this meetup event, and I remember I was making like no money. So like, I felt like I was like the odd man out there. I'm like, I'm just trying to learn from everybody. Like, I don't have any ego in this. Like, whatever I can learn, I will learn. I remember this guy went on stage. This is so mean, but like kind of an idiot. And he got up on stage and he was like, I haven't been able to break past.
This is so brutal and honest.
There are so many times, and I'm sorry that I think this. I'm sorry, but that I have looked at somebody and I'm like, man, how do they have that much money? Like, how are they? Like,
why are they the speaker? What is so special about them?
But okay, Layla, I agree with you, but go ahead.
It's like $400,000 a month. In that moment, my entire world shifted. I literally left the room and I called my dad and I was like, Dad, I will never, ever work a job again because I am smarter than that guy. There is no reason why I can't make the same money as him. And it was like the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because what I realized is that making money is a game and you have to know how to play that game. And it's not that he was smarter than me. And it's not even that he worked harder than me, but he understood the rules of the game a way that I didn't. You don't need superior intelligence to win the game. Some of the richest people that I know are in fact not that smart at all. Getting rich, you don't have to be a genius. You need to work hard, be patient, and you need to have common sense. Probably the 3 most important things that you could do when it comes to making money. But when I first started making money, I couldn't even use proper grammar. And that's really what led me to realize like being rich is not about having a high IQ. It's about making smart choices and sticking with them long enough to watch them pan out. You got to be a little dumb. You know what I've realized about smart people is that super smart people usually miss out on opportunities because they see too much of the risks. When you're really smart, you only see.
When she said that, like, I can relate to that because a lot of times I see things deeper. Maybe it's even like overthinking the risks related to it. You know what I mean? And listen, I'm not a genius, but I understand what she's saying there, because when I think through like, all right, if I do this, and before I even like jump in and think of the positives, I'm like, okay, well, if I do this and it doesn't work out, like, what's the downfall? And I'm always
and see what you just did there. Like, you're describing a negative outcome before you've even started.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because for me, I've got a slightly different perspective. I just jump in. I'm a serial analyzer. I analyze a lot of information, but I also take a lot of risk. But what I tend to find is a lot of the smart people I work with tend to do a lot of procrastinating. They tend to procrastinate. And originally I was like, why are they procrastinating? And I realized what it was is they're just overthinking a situation. And they're basically thinking themselves out of making a decision. And so what comes next here is quite interesting. When we start listening to Layla, she starts talking about, the fact is that you become, the smarter you are, the less risk you're willing to take typically.
Let's see what she's got to say, and then we'll kind of, but I agree with her there, because I do that all the time.
All the risks that could occur. And so you actually pass up a lot of opportunities. Not being intelligent is actually to your advantage when it comes to making money, because you'll take opportunities that others won't. And so it's not about how smart you are, it is about how smart you work. So the question is, are you willing to work hard? Can you make sound decisions? Can you wait? If you can do those three things, I promise you can make money. The next rule of money.
That's interesting too. Like, and for myself, I don't know about you, Duarne, but the waiting part, I think, is sometimes the hardest for people.
Oh, brother, I am not a patient person. I totally get that.
And it's like you make a decision, and it's how long it's how long do you have to wait? How long do you have to work? And I feel like a lot of people, they start a new process, or they start a new system, they start a new strategy, and if it doesn't work in the first week, they're like, yeah, see, this doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right. And
we see it in marketing all the time. Yeah, you and I have spoken about this. People just expect quick results, really quick, instant results. They'll go make a change on their website and they'll go, oh, I have to see what this means. Or they will go and, like we've been talking about, start a newsletter. And go, only 3 people liked my newsletter. And it just comes down to, well, it's your first edition. And look, how many eyeballs actually looked at it based on, we've seen previously, the impressions are more important in that instance. So it's also about looking at the wrong data sometimes too, when they're waiting. They just, but yeah, like I totally agree. Like when I saw that, I was like, yeah, making sound decisions. It's not even about making the right decision. It's about making sound decisions, because you're never going to make all the right decisions.
Well, me and you have talked about it in the past. I've said this before. Like, decisions are like sort of guesswork, because you're only dealing with the information you have up until that point. So there's a lot of unknowns in life. Like, you're never going to know everything. It's never going to be the perfect moment. It's never going to be the perfect time, or you're never going to have the perfect amount of information. But the idea is that, can you make a sound decision, as you said, with the best information that you have today?
Yes.
And I think part of this as well is like, also, yes, giving it time to pan out, but also being open enough to recognize that if something and some information is known in the future that changes the trajectory or changes what you should be, the strategy you should be implementing, you have the wherewithal to recognize that, as well as then kind of shift and alternate your path because of that new information that's come out, and you're not just dedicated to this decision because you made it, right?
I totally agree. And I think that's really quite powerful. Do we have time, you reckon, to watch the second question?
Yeah, and for those, like, if you made it this far too, like we'll include the link to the full video down below in the description, so you guys can watch the full video with all 10. But yeah, let's jump into the second one, and we can kind of go from there. So I think it's,
You can see why I was a little bit excited about this, Dave.
yeah, for sure. This is a good video. I like Layla too. So
Money is that saving money will not make you money, but it will give you the security to take risks. When I first started making money with my company, Gym Launch, I was excited that I was making money, but it was overshadowed by the fact that I had debt and I had no savings. And so for me, the first thing I did when I made money is I paid off all my debt. The second thing I did, I put together what I call is like an oh shit fund, which is like, if everything goes to shit, I know that I have enough money to pay my bills, pay for my living, pay my expenses, and start from scratch if needed. The moment that I took my money that I had made for my business and I put it into that fund, it was like it unlocked a new layer of creativity for me. Because then I said, okay, now everything that comes in, I can use to build. Because I know that I don't need to worry about my bills. I can take care of the business now. And so what I did with that money, I took $4 million and I put it into starting another company. And then I took the other money that was coming in and I put $3 million into starting a software company called Alan, which was a software that we used within the company. I do not think I would have been able to do any of those investments if I had felt like it was either the investment or me paying for my apartment. Saving money, you're not going to save your way into becoming.
I mean, that's so true too. Like, we're both kind of, we're definitely not obviously where Layla is, or Alex is, or all these. So a lot of people relate in our shoes, but I can say for sure, like if I had just sitting in the bank, like money for a year's worth of expenses, and also to start again, right? So like investment, it would be freeing to know. And I've been in that spot in my life where like I never looked at my bank account for, I probably had maybe 4 or 5 years of experiencing that. And I could say that it is definitely a freeing experience where you don't have to worry about what's in your bank. You know
for
what I
your
mean?
day-to-day living. And like I totally, especially for a business point of view, I mean, I know for me, I've had these conversations with my wife, over the last 6-12 months, where I'm like, if we can get this much into the bank, which basically means we're covered for the next 6 months, 12 months for salaries and, general running operational costs, we could then go and hire a whole new division and try something different.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't be stressed out about just covering salaries and things like that. And I think that's so empowering to know that. And this is why I like what she says next here as well, because there's this, it's a very hard hitting some of the principles she's talking about here, which I find really interesting. And it's the stuff where most people listening to this, whether it's now or in the future, I think are all going to be in the same boat, where we would love to have a bit of money in the bank and not have to stress out about, okay, tuition for the kids is coming up. Do we have enough to pay for the year up front, or should we just go and pay the monthly? I mean, that would be a great decision to make, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so let's play the rest of this, and then we'll kind of wrap up.
And we're a fucking billionaire. What I look at it as is, will this money give you the security and peace of mind so that you can focus all of your attention onto just making money? And what it did for me, it created a space for me to take risks. And making more money does require you to take risks. Just like you start a business and you have to invest some amount of money, time, resources. If you want to keep growing a business, you're going to have to keep doing that. And what I recognize is that for me, I had to create that space for myself by making sure that I knew that no matter what happened, I would be taken care of. So it's not about living below your means. It's about creating the means to take risks. So savings won't make you wealthy, but they will give you the security to step out and take opportunities that might. The next rule.
That's it. I mean, obviously, especially in today's world, right? Like, savings accounts pay what? Like 0.03%, here in the business in the US. Like, definitely it's not gonna like make you long-term money, especially if you're only saving a couple $1,000s here and there. But it will give you that mindset, knowing, like I said, for myself, I know that just having that ability to, maybe I didn't have a year of expenses saved up, but definitely that freedom gave you a lot of opportunity,
Well, it gives you that moment to take the risk. If you are going to, like, let's say, for example, you had 3 to 4 months worth of operational sitting there ready to go and living expenses covered, you could take the risk to try something different in your business and give it 2 months and see if it worked. And if it didn't, make the decision at that point. Are you far enough along that you feel you've given it enough time? Or is it something you should probably just go, no, this is not the right choice, or this is not the right direction at this time for the business?
Right.
And I think that's it's some very interesting points. And I think when you get a moment, watch the rest of it, Dave, and our listeners too. Watch the rest, because it is really quite interesting when you start working your way through it and you start to see what's actually there. It's phenomenal.
Well, and this is another one of those things where they, Layla or Alex or, anybody like Jeremy Miner, like all these people that, like, in our newsletter we're sharing, tidbits from, but it's who are you listening to? Not only like us, we appreciate you being here if you made it this far too, like, but also like listen to other people that have been in that path, that are where you want to be. So we're ahead of a lot of people in the entrepreneurial journey. So you're always looking for ahead to who's done or doing what you want to do and learn from them. Right. So and if you stop learning, like if you feel like you're at a point where like, I don't need to learn anymore, like then you're going to get passed up. And that's the thing. Like you always have to be striving to get better, to learn, to, emulate and take pieces of information into your life, into your business, and use it. You don't have to use it all, but what fits for you, and then put that into operations. And so
absolutely, I think, and then look, and this is, if you aren't ready to do that, or you are just, I don't want to learn anymore, then that's fine. You need to hire the right people to learn more for you.
Yep.
And you need to let them run your business for you, or go work for somebody in a role which you already have enough skill sets in that's never going to change what it does. And good luck finding one these days. But I think learning is just a part of living. And I think we should all strive to learn something new every day. And I learn lots of new things all the time. And for me, I love teaching other people the things I've learned. I love to share that knowledge. And I think there's power in sharing that knowledge as well.
Love it. Well, Duarne, again, I want to always thank you for being here. I love having conversations with you. It's one of these reasons why we have conversations like multiple times a week. We're looking forward to also next week releasing more information on the mastermind we talked about last week to help you guys out, give you guys daily ability to ask questions, get feedback. So make sure you listen up next week, follow along, not only to our socials, but to our podcast next week as we bring some of that information to you. But Duarne, any lasting, I think, again, one of those things where we didn't know what we were going to talk about until this morning.
Absolutely.
So great conversation today. Anything you want to wrap up with? Anything you want people to take away from today's conversation?
Look, Dave, love being here. I appreciate the invite each week. I think for everybody, if you find a great piece of content like we just found there, make sure you share it to people. Give it to people who you think might find some value from it. And if you're like most people and they look at 30 minutes worth of content and go, that's a lot of content. If you've watched it, maybe take a couple of notes. And as you're taking your notes, think about people who might react well, or they might be at that point where they might appreciate the information within the videos you're watching, and just take a note of their name there. So when you send that message, you can be like, hey, I was watching this video. Step 6 of this video. It starts at about 20 minutes. It's really, really great. You need to check this out. I think you're going to love it. Hit me up once you watch it, and let's have a conversation. It's a great way to do outreach. And it's also something that's really helpful for when you're out there, finding these great pieces of content and you want to share them to different people. When I find good content, I always share it to different people. I normally just DM them with it. And I'll go, hey, check this out. This is really cool. You'll get a lot out of this. And then when I talk to them, it's like, hey, did you watch that content? Oh, yeah, I did. What'd you think of it? Right. Or normally they'll come to me and go, hey, I watched that content. You were right. That was good. And occasionally I miss the mark. Sometimes it's not as relevant for somebody as I thought it might be. Yeah. And that's fine too. But yeah, get out and share content. When you find good content, share it around, repost it. Let people know about it. Tell more people about it, because you know what? The more good content that people get to consume, the more they get to learn. And the more they learn, the more they share with other people what they've learned.
No, I appreciate that, man. And again, I love having you here. Love having the conversations with you. Yeah, if you made it this far, we appreciate you. Do all that fun algorithmy stuff. As Duarne just said, if you love this video, share it with people. Let's get the word out. Let's kind of build and make an impact on people's lives, on people's business. And that's ultimately what we're doing, is we're just trying to share some lessons we're going through, share things that we've seen, just like the video we watched and reacted to today. We're going to bring you this awesome advice, and awesome experience that we're going through. And we appreciate you being here. So until the next one, we'll be here next Friday again at 8:15 a.m. live. So if there's any questions, anything that you're thinking about, if you're watching a replay, drop it down below. And stay tuned next week. We're going to be releasing some more information about our revamped Triumph Mastermind group with Duarne and I, some extra value for you, and some, let's just say, we'll say founding member specials and opportunities for you. So love that you're here. Love that you watched the episode, and we will look forward to seeing you all in the next episode next week. So have a great, wonderful week, and we'll see you then.
See you, everyone. Thank you.